Deliberate and act on a dispatch agreement between the City of Raton and Colfax County. Mr. Berry.
Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, you have a dispatch agreement in front of you, and it's between the Board of Commissioners of Colfax County and the City of Raton. This is renewal of a longstanding agreement where the City of Raton provides dispatch agreement for Colfax County. You can see the terms of the agreement. The agreement is for 1 year, and the Colfax County would pay the City of Raton the sum of $37,000 for the year for dispatch services. Now, you can also see that the county considered this dispatch agreement back in August and approved it. And in that time, between now and August, myself and the staff have spent some time evaluating the agreement. And I bring it to you tonight with a recommendation to pass the agreement, but I would advise the commission that our work on this in the meantime has shown us that the cost of providing this service to Colfax County is probably, and this is an approximate number, but closer to $50,000 a year. So we are expecting to lose money by entering into the agreement. There are several things to consider in this. I would recommend that we continue to work on this agreement, bring it back to the commission next August, and try to revise that. But that would give me time to meet with Colfax County, go over some of the data that we have, and try to work with them on revising this amount where it's fair to both parties. So we haven't had the time to really do that. We put together some research that just shows that we're probably coming up short on this, but I would ask for more time to work on this with the county and come back to you. So I would recommend that we approve the agreement for this year with that conversation with Colfax County to take place during the term of the agreement.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Berry?
You say the actual cost is somewhere around $50,000 instead of the 37 that we're approving tonight?
Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioner Chavez, we have tried to put together our records to see, what the volume of calls related to Colfax County are. We're still continuing that work, so that's an estimated number that this would cost us about $50,000. And the big cost is personnel in the dispatch department, primarily personnel.
I'll make a motion to approve the dispatch agreement between the City of Raton and Colfax County with the provisions that city manager negotiate an equitable solution to the monitoring difference that needs to be upgraded.
I'll second.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second to approve the contract for 1 year. Is there any further discussion? Mike Lang, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Giacomo,
Yes.
Commissioner Schuster,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes?
Mayor Pro Tem Sagata.
Yes. Agreement is approved for the year. Deliberate and act on the CCJJ-ACB grant 16-18434 budget adjustment number 1. Mr. Berry?
Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, I would like to pass this to Mrs. Antonucci. She generally does the administration for our program and does a great job at it. So I'll pass that to Mike Land.
Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, in your packet this evening is a budget adjustment, the first budget adjustment for the JJAC program. It is not an increase or decrease to funding. It's merely moving $1,200 in travel from the Continuum Coordinator's travel budget to the Boys Council travel budget.
Are there any questions for Mrs. Antonucci?
No, I'll move that we accept this budget program and unit adjustment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? No. Motion passes. D, we come to the public hearing. Consideration of a recommendation by the Raton Planning and Zoning Committee to deny a zoning change requested by Mr. Andrew Holman on the property bordered by Fairview Avenue I-25, North 3rd Street, and North 5th Street to change the 14th and 15th blocks of Fairview from an R5 residential to an R1 residential. This is a public hearing. This is where you all get to speak. We would ask you to please step up to the podium, state your name, and address the commission. This is where you need to focus your attention. We don't need to be squabbling and bantering amongst ourselves, and we will not put up with that. So please address the commission, be respectful, as we will be respectful to you. So at this time, I will take, did we have a sign-up list, or are we just gonna go by a show of hands who would like to speak?
Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, I don't believe we do have a sign-up sheet for comments. I would suggest that you go by a show of hands. And just to preface the public hearing, if I can give you a little background and the people in attendance as far as the issue that we're discussing. We are talking about the requested consideration of a rezoning for blocks 14 and 15 of the Fairview addition, and that's in the area north of Interstate 25, west of North 1st Street. It is related to the request to have horses on the property. Property is currently zoned R5. The request is to rezone to R1. Now, let me go over that. The R in the is for residential zoning. Both are residential type of zoning, and we have an R1, R4, and R5, and the difference is the density of the lot. So an R1 zone would require a minimum lot size of an acre. An R5 zone is a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet. So an R5 is much denser. Structures can be located closer together. The R1 does have a provision, although the residential is identical, churches, schools, and similar uses. R1 does have a provision for an agricultural activity that's not in conflict with the character of the area. That's the basis of the request. This was heard by Planning and Zoning several months ago. You do have the report in your packet from Planning and Zoning. Planning and Zoning did recommend to the commission to deny the rezoning request. I know Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, we do have a number of people here who would like to speak to the commission and address the commission on the issue of the rezoning. So I'll turn it over to you at that point.
Okay, at this time, we will, just by show of hands, who all would like to address this issue? Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we'll just start in the front row over here with this gentleman in the blue shirt. Please step up to the podium, state your name, and the floor is yours.
My name is Julian Trujillo, and I work for the Citizens for the Development Disabled. And for quite some time, we have been going out to this area to work with the horses. And the individuals with developmental disabilities are really, really responding well to working with one horse in particular. And others work with other horses. And each individual has a good rapport with a certain horse. And it is really beneficial for those afflicted with a developmental disability to work with these horses, because it's true, horses heal. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next.
Commissioners, thank you so much for taking the time to see us this evening. My name is Bert Dennis. I am both on the board of directors at the Equine Rescue and a neighbor. I live at 274 North Fairview. I would especially like to thank Commissioner Schuster and Scott for taking all of the time to help me be educated on this issue, what the problems are, what the different options are. And quite frankly, until I moved to Raton, I really didn't realize that zoning was such a huge piece of city government and city management. That being said, as a part of the board of directors, the Equine Rescue is in fact a not-for-profit agency that has been operating prior to Raton out of Laguna. The rescue director, Crystal Denton, chose to move to Raton based on much research into those communities which she perceived could best benefit not only from an equine rescue, but from several different types of therapy programs. So to fully understand what this means, not only is it a rescue where horses are coming in and being rehabilitated and then being adopted out, it's also designed to be a program for different therapies, including individuals with developmental disabilities, children with a variety of disabilities, wounded warriors, and soldiers returning with PTSD. In order to address those issues, it requires a certain number of horses that would stay on the property and not be eligible for adoption. Now, in all of that, we also understand that we're in a neighborhood, that the equine rescue is located right square in the middle of other people's homes. And with any livestock, there are issues. So we have undertaken a tremendous amount of research to best identify those solutions to the issues that have been brought to us by the neighbors. The neighbors, by the way, whom we really enjoy. They have been fabulous neighbors, and we feel that in the best interest of everyone, the first thing that would be on the agenda to help deal with issues around flies and issue around odors would be to look at the 3rd Street side and to back that pasture up at least 100 to 150 feet, to seed that property and to never let that piece of property be touched again by a horse. This serves the rescue in 2 ways. Number one, it's being a good neighbor and understanding that there are ways that we need to fit into the neighborhood. And number 2, as a part of any therapy program, especially when you're dealing with children, you have to have a play area for them. You have to have an area where they can feel safe and be away from horses should that be necessary prior to bringing them into working with the horses. So that piece of pasture would become a lot that would always be seeded, always be maintained, and always be kept horse-free. Second of all, we realize that in the acquisition of this property, there is property in the county. And we will do our best to get horses moved off of the pasture lands they're currently on, the 6 acres, and move them up into the additional 60-plus acres that are in the county. However, as a not-for-profit, those kinds of tasks take money. And up until this point, we have not been eligible to be certified by the Livestock Board because of the uncertainty of whether or not this rescue could remain in place or if it was going to have to move, even possibly to another state. So once the Livestock Board can come in with a surety and know that the horses will remain somewhere in that 67 acres, then we can get approval from the Livestock Board, and that makes the program eligible for numerous state and federal grants that will then help to pay for the fencing, to pay for the watering. As a part of the reclamation process, we had a discussion with Randy Velasquez today. He came out, he spent 2 hours out on the property, felt like it was a profitable and highly likely scenario to begin to get that pasturing back into a more visually appealing situation, but he did say that we need to be aware that that property has been used by livestock for a very long time. You know, these horses are not the first livestock on there. So any expectation that that pasture land is going to come back very quickly is just not reasonable. He told us to look at the long term, to think about the plan in terms of 2, 5, and 10 years in order to bring it to a place where you are looking at grasslands rather than at weeds and dirt. But in order to do that, we have to start somewhere, and that the rescue is committed to starting that today. So to sum it up, what we're asking for is to find a way to work with you and you guys to work with us and to work with everybody in this community to say, how can we, I need to throw in one more issue, which is the rescue has searched other properties in, around, and Raton into southern Colorado. So far, Mr. Holman is the only person who was willing to work with us as a not-for-profit in terms of purchasing the land. And we looked at every possible other scenario. We looked at Jackson Stables. It couldn't be done. We looked at other land that was here that was more pasture land. It couldn't be done because there were no structures. So throughout the last 6 to 8 months in exhaustive searching, Mr. Holman is the only one who stepped up and said, we're willing to work with you. That's why it's imperative that we continue to work towards getting this land approved and being good neighbors and being able to address the issues of those who live around us, be it the smell, be it the flies, and to provide a therapy service as well as a rescue for horses who are starving, who are on kill lines, who can come back and be valuable to this community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next.
Morning, boss. We'll help hood out our ranch every day, and a couple of kids help walk horse, cane, feed horse, walk them, and see help country being horse walk them, and that's it.
Alrighty, thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Appreciate your work. Next.
Diane Dixon, 300 Fairview Avenue. I have been away for 5 months, and I regret having missed the Planning Commission meetings. Current and recent uses in this area are storage units, which in my experience in land use is typically commercial or industrial. That's current. Off-road racing, it is recreational, but it's also commercial, industrial use. The noise, the dust. Cattle and horses have been on this property for the 5 years that I've lived there. Cows, calving, doesn't seem to have been an issue. So, with what little, I wish I knew more about this, but there are a lot of conflicting issues that come to me as a person with land use experience. So my request tonight to the commission is to table this issue, or you can refer it back to the Planning Commission for additional study. But I am going to ask that you don't accept the Planning Commission recommendation on this. I think it's a worthy project, deserves more time and attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
If I sit here, can you hear me?
Sure.
Thank you. I am also a neighbor, probably have the most adjacent property, and am directly across the street from the corrals, and have had no problems with odor, and I had my windows open all summer. The flies, we did a study, and there's no more flies in my neighborhood than there are in 5 other locations in Raton that were chosen at random. So, and my view, I'm a recent transplant from Albuquerque. My view out my front window is horses galloping and playing and grazing, and there's not much that's offensive about that. One of my considerations is almost larger than that. The business climate. I've been in business and finance my entire life, and we seem to have a very adversarial relationship with people that are coming to town and wanting to have businesses here. At first, I thought it was just me, because I was making it relative to, I've lived in New York and Boston and places like that, and I thought, well, I'm just not used to a small town, get used to it. But in talking to most of the citizens, not that I've talked to most of them, but most of the people I have spoken to, say basically the same thing, that they believe there's an adversarial relationship with people that want to open businesses in this town. The business people I know in Albuquerque won't touch Raton with a 10-foot pole, and there are people that are investment bankers and venture capitalists that I've gotten to invest in various other projects along the way, and they're always open to it, and they won't touch Raton because of the resistance that's met. Tried to open a business here myself. It lasted 6 weeks. A lot of resistance, a lot of meanness even, which I don't need to go into, but I was looking at manufacturing space in Trinidad, and I had 3 officials from the city offer to take me around. People were giving me their business cards and saying, if you have any problem, give me a call. I always lived in Albuquerque most of my life. Manal was a dirt road when we moved there, and I remember when Intel came into Albuquerque, or Rio Rancho rather, there were 9 jurisdictions that overlapped that Intel had to go through or face. There were 2 cities, there were 2 counties. I think that one was the Bureau of Land Management, the Rio Grande Conservancy District, and all of those jurisdictions worked hand in hand to bring a business, which was not easy, to Intel. And now we have a town that grew around it that does no longer need Intel. It may get up, pack up and move. It's lost a lot of people, but Rio Rancho would still be self-sustaining. It's got thousands of businesses. Now I've been coming up here for 35 years, and every time I come up to visit my sister, there are more houses for sale. There's more weeds growing up. There's more businesses that have been boarded up. Bought a place myself, renovated it, now it's boarded up. The paradigm that's happening here cannot continue. I worked for the Department of Commerce before I got here, and I called some friends that work in the Census Department, and I said, well, what are the figures here? They have them through 2013, and if the pattern that exists for loss of population between 2009 and 2013 alone continues, there won't be any people here in 26 years. Now, we all know that there will be, but statistically, this town's dying. And I believe that you had someone come in and tell you the same thing. Business expert, Dr. Ivan, revitalization requires a commitment to entrepreneurial development, which requires a town that promotes change and growth. We have to celebrate everyone's successes. We have to not pull people down, but help prop them up, build on local talents and strong social networks. And nothing works until the community navigates around it. He was talking about the cave people, the citizens against virtually everything. And I've seen just in the 15 months that I've lived here, several businesses try to come here and be turned away by things that to me seem rather petty. And again, I've been on the receiving end of that myself, and I would just ask that, I realize that zoning can be very particular and very complicated, but this is probably one of the finest businesses that can come to this town. They have international support. They have people from Great Britain coming over and looking at horses. They have plans to do rides and lectures on the history of the Santa Fe Trail while people are playing with horses. This is a tourism draw. This is something that people need to be banging this woman's door down saying, what can we do for you to help you stay here? And she's been getting the opposite. She's been getting tickets and naysayers and a lot of grief. And I would just ask that the change that's required before this town hits a critical mass. I mean, we're closing schools. That's scary to me. I just bought a house in something that might be a ghost town in 10 or 20 years. I'd like to see it grow, and business is the only way to make it grow, population or business, and business can bring the population. The population's not gonna come without the business being here. I can't even, you can imagine how much is spent just by driving over the pass that people in Raton actually spend there. People are moving there because of the jobs are there. I've talked to probably a couple dozen people that used to live in Raton that live there now because their job was there, and why should they commute back and forth? If I open the manufacturing plant that I would like to, it would probably be in Trinidad. Because that's where it makes more sense. I would love for it to be here, but I can't continue to be the bull in the china shop and keep breaking dishes and having people mad at me, so. That's all I have to say, is I think this deserves a great deal of consideration, and if you okay any business this year, this should be the one that we beg to stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. There any other speakers?
I applaud their mission. I think it is really good. But the fact is, the city ordinance says that no animals are allowed within 500 feet or so of a residence without first getting permission from the residents around the neighborhood. That has never been done. They chose to ignore that part of the law, the ordinance, and just put the horses on it and make everybody else deal with it. It isn't the homeowner's problem. It's their problem for bringing the horses in when they knew they shouldn't have done it, or they didn't do their homework correctly. Now, people have purchased homes there thinking that horses or animals weren't allowed in that neighborhood. Well, what happens when it drives down the property prices on the houses in that area? It's a safety concern as well. The road from Dale down to Fairview is a one-lane road. You can't get very much traffic through there. You get horse trailers going up and down there. What's going to happen? There's no infrastructure there. The fencing there as well is just barbed wire fencing. It's a safety concern. Their horses are attractive nuisances. Kids like going and looking at them. They're going to crawl under fences.
Excuse me, we have somebody has the floor.
They're going to get hurt. This isn't the place to have this business, and it is a business. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Please state your name, please.
Hi, I'm Crystal Denton, and I am the owner and founder of The Rescue. I just wanted to clarify one thing. This is not just a barbed wire fencing. This is field fencing with barbed wire on the top, and the field fencing, the squares are like that big. Nobody's going to get through the fencing for his issue that he has. Also, when we moved here, he's right. We relied on other information when we moved in there, so we did not know what the codes were when we first got there. We were not trying to slight anybody or try to make the neighborhood pay. We thought we were allowed to be there. So what we're trying to do now is work with the whole neighborhood, work with everybody, and just try to make it work. And we'd like to stay there because we do have things that we would like to do for the community. And we do have programs that are in order and are working. And we don't have to worry about a bunch of horse trailers coming down because that's not what we're going to be doing. I have my trailers. I don't have other people bringing trailers in and stuff. So that's not an issue with the road either. But if you guys have any questions of me that I can answer for you.
Well, at this time, it is just a public comment.
Okay.
We're listening to you, and we will have our discussion.
Okay.
And if we have any questions at that time, we may ask them.
Okay,
Can
thank
I
you.
make a note that for 45 years, there's been either cattle or horses on that property? Because there's a clause about consistent use or whatever, and all of these houses were built while there were already cattle and horses across the street. It's never been a safety issue. I think one horse died there last summer, which was maybe not an issue, was sad, but there've never been kids hanging around the neighborhood or whatever. I've been there 15 months.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to make a comment? Okay.
My name's Andy Holman. I'm the owner of the property. There has been a lot of discussion here about, there's been some misinformation. Number one, the there was a comment made that there were a fly problem. There is no fly problem in Raton, quite frankly. I've got a lot more flies up in Pueblo where I live now than I ever had down here in Raton. The property has been a horse property. Eleanor Evans is the lady that brings her cows down every winter so she can be close to them. And Eleanor lived in the motel that's behind 1200 North 3rd. It was called the Coronado Motel. She lived there in the 50s. She lived there for 8 years. It was a horse property then, it was a cow property, it was an animal property. If you drive out there and go down Fairview, you can see where all the houses have been built on Fairview and North 3rd. They have surrounded this property. One of the problems with this property, when they rezoned it in 1975, they didn't take into consideration that there's a large ditch that goes around this property. This ditch acts as a conduit for water that runs off during heavy rains or heavy snowfalls. The water usually, if it escapes that ditch, goes into this pasture property and heads down the hill towards the interstate. In all the time that property has been there, there has been damage done to that area on several occasions. One I'm thinking of, when I owned it in the last 8 years, they had to replace 2 of the bridges or walkways that went to the so-called stables. They're not stables, they're loafing sheds. And those loafing sheds have been there. Mr. Wes Kendrick is here. He helped his dad build his house at the end of Fairview in 1957. And I think Mr. Kendrick would verify that that has always been a property that catered to animals of various kinds, mostly horses. Bill Carroll, who I bought the property from and since has passed away, used it as a horse property for many years. There's a barn there, there's loafing sheds, there's fencing. The place has obviously been set up to accommodate animals. And I don't think that building a home there is going to work because of this. It's in a lower area, and it does flood on occasion. And I don't know that the zoning map accommodates or actually has any sign of showing that it could flood. The other thing is the interstate is noisy. If you stand in the pasture, you can hear trucks, you can hear cars driving by. This pasture acts as a buffer between the homes on Fairview and North 3rd and does a good job of it. There's enough room there that these people aren't being bothered by noises coming from the highway. So I would say that the idea that this property is anything but a horse property is almost ludicrous. I mean, if anyone were to drive out there, you can see the ring of homes that have been built around there. They were all built during the time that there were animals there. Every one of them. They knew there were animals there prior to 1975. Mr. Kendrick built his home in 57. I don't know the age. Wes, what's the age of the house down the street from you where these ladies live? Chance's house, the old.
Oh, that was before my time. I've been there 50 years.
Yeah, that's before your time? You've only been there 50 years. Ernie, you worked for the racetrack. Didn't you work for the racetrack? Oh, I thought you said you did. Oh, I thought you.
The beef store delivered feed out there.
Ah, okay. Were there flies that was that a problem? Did you have?
There were flies, there were problems.
Yeah. All right. Well, I got my wrong information on that. Anyway, I would like to see Crystal stay, and I would like to see this program go ahead because I think it's going to benefit this community. There was a guy sitting here, his name was Chavez. he left this town 30-some years ago because the company that he worked for closed down, and he was forced to move with that company to the East Coast. He just came back, and he could tell you that the attitude of this town 35 years ago was about the same as it is today. I mean, you need to welcome newcomers. This gal, her mom and dad were moving here, her sisters moved here, they've bought property here. I mean, I don't understand why you'd want to run these fine people off, but that's what's going to happen. I think that's enough. I've talked too much. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments?
When we bought that.
One second.
Oh, Gary Medina. When we bought that property, I don't know, 15 years ago, started building houses. I know there's horses been there intermittently, cattle there intermittently. While we're building the houses, there were not horses there. We bought it as an R5. We invested our money in that property, knowing that, not the possibility of what it may become. That's why we have zoning laws, is to protect people's investments when they make that investment. An R1 still doesn't fit their needs. The word I keep on hearing is business. It's a business. It may be a non-for-profit business, but it's a business. As far as businesses in town, I'm an investor in a business in town. I know how hard it is in town. This town isn't suffering any more than 30% of the rest of the country. Counties this size are dying, and that's the way it is. I've invested my money in this community. I continue to invest my money in this community, but I base it off of what it is and not what it might be. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Wes, we'll get Simon and then we'll get you next, Wes. How's that? All right.
I'm Simon Medina. I'm one of the residents right across from this place where they have the horses. I've heard some people say here that it don't smell. When that wind changes over towards our house, we have to, well, on the west side, we never open our door or our windows because of the smell. But flies, they're starting to come in. It's getting cold. They're going to start looking for a place to stay to winter if they do that. We've had horses there before, like they say. But we've been there 10 years now. And they've had horses there a couple of times that I can remember. There was two. One of them got killed by lightning. Then they, later on through the years, they brought two more. And one of them broke his leg. And they took them all out. Then they did bring some cows in there, and it was during the winter. There's no, we didn't have any problem with it then because there's no flies there. It was cold. We didn't have any problem with the cattle. She brought them in for a little while, and then she took them out. These horses that came in there, I got up one morning. I looked out the window, and there was a bunch of horses out there. Nobody asked whether they could be put in there or not. Now, they're talking about horses being there so many years, but all these years that those horses were there, they were breaking the law. The law states that there shall not be any animals within 500 feet of a residential area. Even if it was 20 years ago, they were breaking the law 20 years ago. Today, they're breaking the law again. Those horses have been there for going on 8 months now. They had one citation. If this thing would have been taken care of when it first started, we wouldn't be here today. This is something I don't understand. They say that there's been a lot of people there walking the horses. I never seen anybody walk horses. I'd seen her walking horses a little bit, not much, but I haven't seen anybody else. I haven't seen anybody riding horses there. No one. Now, to me, I don't understand what this problem has created. You know, we're the ones that are going to suffer there because of the smell, because of our property value is going to drop. We built that house there because we wanted to retire there and live the rest of our lives there. I'm getting old, and I'm going to have to stay there because I don't think that I can sell my house for what it's worth right now. Another thing that I've noticed is if you go up there, there's some trees right there that run straight across that property. Those trees, as far up as a horse can reach, there's no bark on them. Why is that? I never seen that. I was born and raised in a ranch, and I never seen something like that happen. So I don't know what else to tell you. But the smell is bad. They can't tell you that there's no smell there because there is, and the flies are coming in. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kendrick, we'll let you go now.
You sure?
You betcha. You have the floor.
If I can get a. Need to go into this, huh? Need to go over.
You need to come over here, Wes, please.
You're okay. Well, I mainly want to ask a question. Has Crystal bought that property up the hill?
Oh,
Part of the property,
Where the barn is and on up
yeah.
She wants to.
for around 50, 60 acres up there?
Yeah.
like 60 some acres, yeah.
Could you move up there and do away with this problem?
No, there's not enough pasture land up there. There's a lot of canyons and rocks and everything else. There's some pasture land up there, but there's not enough flat land and stuff for us to be able to do.
I've been over that property up there for 50 years, and I think there's no pasture where they're at now.
Yeah, but there wasn't pasture when we got there. We're working on pasture that was already eaten down from cattle and everything else from before we got there. What we're trying to do is, as Bert said, we've worked with the natural resources, with Velasquez. He's gonna help us to reclaim it. We're working on a manure problem, a manure reclamation.
You can't reclaim it with that bunch of horses in it.
Some of those horses will be moved. We can't do anything until we know if we can stay. And then we can start working on that project to get some of them moved. We've got some pasture land that we can use up there. We can't use all of it as pasture land.
You know this old gentleman here, old Scott Berry? I wasn't raised in town either. I was raised on a ranch. And I know what too many cattle can do to land.
Yes. And actually, cattle eat more land, require more land than horses do. But I also feed them. But as I said, if we can move them, we will move some of them. But
Can't you move them up on that hill? I
It's not all fenced. There's a lot of canyon area. We can move some of them, and we plan on moving some of them.
Well, that's what I was
And
thinking.
that pasture across from me is a lot greener than it was last year when I moved in.
Okay,
Yeah, and it was all
okay,
weeds.
let's bring the attention back over here, please. Let's don't get in
We are
discussions
working on
with
that
you.
though, Wes. I understand what you're asking. We are
But,
working on
but
it.
that one area there looks just about like this floor here.
That's how it looked before we got here. So the cattle ate it down to dirt. It was
At
dust,
least
remember?
at least before, what was green there was weeds.
Yes, you're right. There are weeds there. That comes from all the cattle feed. You are correct.
But I thought if perhaps you could just make use of that and the main problem you would have is getting the water line up there.
Yeah, we plan on making use of that property as much as we can.
If you could move them up there, it'd solve everybody's problem.
I can't move them all up there, but I understand what you're saying. I do have to have more flat land for arenas and stuff.
For what?
To be able to do our programs in,
Oh,
we have to be able to have some flat land. We can't use just all the hill.
okay. Well, I sympathize with the property owners that this is gonna make a problem for.
I think if we can all work together and we can get it the way what we're trying to do and get up the manure managed and get the flies managed and everything else, I don't think it'll be a problem.
But this thing about the city ordinances that people were breaking the law for years, forever there, and nothing was ever mentioned to them, I guess.
We didn't know. We didn't know that.
Nobody ever
When
knew.
we moved off the property, there were horses there,
Yeah.
and we assumed that everything was opposite.
And then, if you've been out to the city dump out there
I have not.
a few years back, and a friend of mine put too many cows in there.
No, we shouldn't have any cows.
Yeah, I don't have cows.
I know you don't have any cows. I'm just using that as an example of what happened. That old boy sitting back there in the corner can tell you about it.
It's very easy to overgraze land.
They overgrazed that land, and what are you raising out there now?
Mr. Kendrick, can we address the issue here? You need to be addressing us with the issue. We don't need the argument going back and forth between you and Miss Denton, or
But it blew,
Denton there, yes.
it blew sand across the road going out there, and the only thing living there now is prairie dogs. I guess they're doing all right. That's all I got to say, guys.
Thank you, Wes.
Thank you.
Can I make one suggestion? I live right across from where there would be smell, there would be flies, I'm 20 feet away. Come to my house, I'll make you some sandwiches, and you can stand in the yard and see for yourself what it looks like, what it did look like, what problems there might be. It's kind of hard to filter through all of this. And if you just were right there, that might clarify things.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment? Okay, at this time, we will close the public hearing portion of the meeting. Item E is deliberate and act on the recommendation by the Raton Planning and Zoning Committee to deny a zoning change requested by Mr. Andrew Holman on the property bordered by Fairview Avenue, I-25, North 3rd Street, and North 5th Street to change the 14th and 15th blocks of Fairview from an R5 residential to an R1 residential zone. Before we take a motion or anything, is there anything the commission would like to say?
I have a list.
Go ahead.
I have been speaking with Bert, and I apologize, I don't have your last name on. Dents. And I've been speaking to her as her being the, on the board of your program, Crystal. And I made several suggestions, and a lot of which she has followed through with, and I'm very pleased with that. And I'd also like to mention that if you attended Dr. Ivan's presentation, you would know that he was speaking to the whole community, not just the city
Yeah,
commission.
it has to be
And the whole community needs to change the
It's gonna
attitude.
take a village, right, yeah.
Right. And so having a negative attitude about our decision tonight will not really help the situation at all. We have to understand that regardless of whether you understood that there was the ordinance in place or the type of zoning it was, it still is there. And the city and the manager act based on complaint and actions taken by other citizens. Mr. Berry and I have had many long discussions on this issue. I don't want to see your business go away. I really want to see it succeed. I'm not sure that rezoning to an R1 would change it because we still have the maintenance of certain animals within the city clause, which states that if you have corral, barns, or sheds, or animals that are kept and maintained in such type build structures, you still have to have permission or signed agreement from neighbors within 500 feet. So that was one of the things I talked to Ms. Dents about, was how if you can move those back, and actually this is not easily numbered to me.
And if I could, Commissioner, give a little clarification. This is not something you all have seen, but the commissioners have this map, which came from Colfax County Assessor's Office. And then you have a couple of maps, but this one shows the subdivision, and there is property ownership there if you look. So you can really magnify that. And it's on an aerial photo. And so the red line that you see there, that's the city limit line. And outside of the city limit line, the zoning is rural holding zone. And what we've said is, most of the ranch land in the area is zoned rural holding zone. We really don't have an issue with livestock uses in a rural holding zone. And just to explain, the city does have an agreement with the county, a joint powers agreement, in regard to zoning in the extraterritorial area. So that still would be jointly zoned by the city and the county. The city does provide enforcement of that, but the zoning, rural holding zone, does not present a problem for horses. Everything that you see in color is zoned R5. That's the dense zone, 6,000 square foot minimum lot size. And this piece that's north of I-25 and west of the subdivision within the red line is zoned R1. Now, we have the same map up there. It's really hard to see, but that's the R1 zone. You, the commissioners, have the ordinance that describes what's allowed in an R1 zone and an R5 zone. And what we're looking at here is the request for rezoning includes block 14, which is that block there, and block 15, which is this block.
And that, then, if that makes it clear, that's the discussion I had with Bert, is that if you could move the horses off of block 14 back into block 15, that gets your horses far enough away from your neighbors who have the problem with the flies and smell. And there are, everybody has different tolerance levels for different things. My husband and I often disagree on what smells bad, or what doesn't, or what's too loud and what's too soft. So, we're not gonna go there on this discussion. That's just the way it is. So what I suggested was if you can move them back as soon as possible to this area, then there would be much less problem. You're gonna have happier neighbors, and then you can possibly get that, you can get them to sign off on and agree to what you're doing. The other issue is the nonconformance, and there is a nonconformance clause that if there has been a nonconforming use of the property for in continuous use, then it is not an issue. However, when it becomes, when it's come to the highlight of the city, there needs to be documentation of that non-conforming use. And I understand that Mr. Berry has requested that documentation, therefore getting written statements from individuals who know that there's been no more than 6 months break in the time of where a horse or a cattle were there, so that there can only be, but it has to, we have to have that in writing, not just, you saying that, well, you've been there 15 months, and, so we need that in writing, and we have asked for that. But there again, I mean, going back to the R1 versus the R5, it doesn't negate the fact that you have to, either designation, you still have to have happy neighbors. And so that's really the main issue here, is getting your neighbors to be happy with you. And, I mean, these are some of the nicest people, who live in this town, and they really do work hard to make it a nice community. So I know that, and I also know that you have, extended your hand and done some discussing with them on the issue. I think I'm running out of things to say here, but from where I see it, I'm not sure that rezoning will help. I do see that if you're gonna maintain the property there, you're gonna have to move the horses back, get your neighbors happy, regardless of the zone.
Thank you.
Which we have been working on.
Right.
I've had, every year since I've owned the property, I get a form from the county asking about animals.
Mhm.
And I've filled it out every year and sent it to them. I don't know if they have a record of it or not.
They should have that record, and you should be able to access that then. And that's a matter of just going to the county, but that is something that, it would have been helpful to have had that information tonight.
But at one point he had all those trails all around, and for all that time, there was no animals there.
And that's what you need to prove, is how, it has to be less than 6 months that there were no animals there.
Well, and at the time, he didn't even own that portion right across from us, but they had the trail and they go all the way around, and there was no horses then, there was no animals there.
Yeah.
And that was, I don't know how long the trail was there. I'm sure it could be researched.
Yeah. Now, if they were able to move the horses back between 300 and 500 feet away from your house, would that be amicable to you? That's a question you need to think about.
Can I say something else?
Mm-hmm.
When it gets windy, I notice here lately that there's like a white cloud comes over towards our house. And I've had to go out in our front porch, wash the front porch and mop it because of our grandkids. And that is a concern that I have. And I was told here the last time we came to a meeting, that if this didn't pass, he told my wife, Andy told my wife that, he was gonna put the ugliest trailer park that I had ever seen in his place.
Well, that's also not within that zoning, right? So, you know, that's a whole different zone, and we're definitely not gonna approve that type of zoning.
But that dust is bad.
Yeah,
Might I address something
Of
on
course.
this? The horse rescue is a fine program. And I'm aware of the wounded warriors, because I know a lot of wounded warriors, I'm one myself. And it is a helpful thing. But the fact that we're here tonight to discuss, we're not to discuss he said, she said, we said, they said. What we gotta discuss is what the law is. And 9.0 states that there shall be no more than, in fact, I'll read it to you. It shall be unlawful for any person to keep, harbor, maintain any domestic livestock, including but not limited to horses, sheep, goats, within the city limits of the boundaries of the city of Raton, without first, and get this, without first obtaining the written consent and approval of each and every. I'm sure you guys are all aware of that.
Yeah, well, I found that out like 2 months after we moved there.
Okay, that is an ordinance that has been in place in Raton forever. If they got away with it previous to this, so bad, that was good for them and it's bad for you.
Right.
But the fact is that we're not here tonight to discuss he said, she said. We're here to act on whether, and this is my opinion, fellow commissioners, we're here to act on the planning and zoning issue, not whether it is. And what the law has stated right now is that planning and zoning. I'm all for your program. I really am. Excuse me. The program that you're doing for them is a fine program. But that's not what we're here to discuss tonight. That's my opinion. We're here to act and deliberate act on the recommendation by the Raton Planning and Zoning Board. And we have their report in our hand. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Commissioner Giacomo, anything?
Well, my view is that we have a planning and zoning board to do one thing, and that's to serve the city. My recommendation is make a motion to accept and approve the recommendation of the Raton Planning and Zoning Committee to deny the zoning requested by Mr. Homer on the property bordered by Fairview Avenue, I-25 North 3rd Street and North 5th Street to change from 14 to 15 blocks of Fairview from R5 to R1 zone.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion between the commission? I would just like at this time to make one comment myself. We are for this program. I think it's an outstanding program. But as Mr. Chavez stated, we have got to follow the ordinances and what's presented before us. Unfortunately, it's just my opinion that homework wasn't done before you moved into this property. And that being done could have eliminated a lot of the headache that's going on. I do applaud your commitment to bring this to Raton. I hope you do bring it to Raton. But at this time, we've got to vote on what's presented to us and by what is laid out in our ordinances. So, like Commissioner Schuster said, if the vote should go in a way that you're not happy with, please don't get discouraged. I think we're all willing to work with all the individuals around here to reach a solution, because we want everybody to be happy, all right? Okay, that'd be.
Can I ask a question before you vote? Just because she brought it up, I just have a question. If we were to move them from the people who are worried about it, then we are within the city ordinances, because then we can get permission from the people who are closest to it, correct?
my understanding is provided you come up with that documentation that there's always been, it's always been used as pasture land.
Okay,
One.
I just need to know what kind of time frame I have.
Right, and, two, you still, if you're 500 feet away, you still have to be, regardless of whether it's R5 or R1, you
Right.
still have to be 500 feet away from housing of other individual residents.
Right.
And you have to kind of get them on board and, you know, be happy. Yeah. And I don't see that R5 or R1 makes a difference for you.
Well, yeah,
Because-
they both allow a home-based business, so
Right,
they're both the same.
exactly. And because that's the animal use clause as opposed to the
Right.
actual zoning. So you've got to have your happy neighbors,
Right, exactly.
yeah.
Okay, we have before us a motion and a second. Michael Ann, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Giacomo,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
Commissioner Schuster,
Yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Sagata.
Yes. We have passed the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission to deny the zoning change requested by Mr. Holman. Manager's report.
Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, I would like to inform the commission and the public that we have scheduled this Saturday at 7 o'clock at the Shooter Theater, the Southwest Regional Final of the Country Showdown. This is brought to the community by Phil Longford and Phillips Broadcasting. And this has become a big event, an important event in our community. And I would note to you that the last two winners of the Southwest Regional have went on to win the national final and the $100,000 grand prize. And that's really the genesis of the Gate City Music Festival. Was Crystal Yates, who won here and won the national competition, coming back to Raton saying, you know, I appreciate what the community of Raton meant in her career and coming back. And those of us that attended that concert would say
Just
that
could
she's
you
played
shut the doors,
Shooters
please?
numerous times and has really helped Raton as far as developing this as a musical venue. So that's Saturday, 7 o'clock, Shooter Theater. It is live on the internet at www.kbkzradio.com or 96.5 Coyote Country. The City of Raton and Raton Main Street have been selected to receive the Best Practices in Economic Development Award from the New Mexico Infrastructure Finance Conference Planning Committee. The Infrastructure Planning Conference will be held, and let me find my flyer on that. I can provide this to the commissioners. October 28th through October 30th. That will be in Albuquerque. I'll find the location of that and I'll inform the commission. But they will allow 5 people from the community to attend the award brunch free of charge on October 30th at 10 o'clock at the Hyatt located in downtown Albuquerque. And the whole conference is located at the Hyatt in Albuquerque. I'll report more to you at the next meeting, but I would plan on attending the conference. I would like to point out that this is a lot of work on a couple of our staff members, Jason Phillips and Chris Valentini from City of Raton staff, Brenda Ferry and Diana Sanchez from Raton Main Street. And the cooperation between City of Raton, Raton Main Street, the progress that's been made in the downtown area have really resulted in this recognition and the award from this committee. So I want to say thanks to those people for their efforts. There will be a meeting of the Northeast Regional Transportation Planning Organization, August 21st in Las Vegas. That starts at 10 o'clock. I will try to attend that if I can make it down there.
Mr. Berry?
Yes.
You said August, you mean October?
Yeah, something like that. I think
Okay, good.
October 21st. So we blow right through that.
Let me write that down.
You're already mad at it.
I have a long report there, Commissioner. I probably have a few boo-boos in there. Raton Public Service Company did receive proposals for new generation equipment. That would be approximately the 4.5 megawatt equipment to replace the Wartsila unit. 3 proposals were submitted And the engineer, which is Zachary Engineering from Denver, is currently reviewing the proposals. It's a rather complicated project, so the review will take some time. I think the RPS board will consider the recommendation of Zachary and the proposals, and ultimately it'll come to the city commission for approval, but we expect that to be a few meetings off. I would tell the commission that today Dan Campbell, as president of the Environmental Quality Association, did attend the Water Quality Control Commission triennial review and did testify at that today. That was held in Santa Fe, and that will be ongoing for the rest of the week. And specifically, he is addressing the effect of proposed rules on nutrients in regard to our wastewater treatment plant. And that's something that the Water Quality Control Commission will consider adopting and writing into permits, and this could be very expensive for all communities, large and small, throughout New Mexico. So he's providing information to that board. I did meet with LTC David Geisler. He is the Director of Construction and Facility Management for the New Mexico Army National Guard. Several of you attended that meeting as well. And we did meet them at the Raton Readiness Center. The Raton Readiness Center is the National Guard Armory located at the airport. And they did explain to us that they will no longer staff or man the Raton Readiness Center. The National Guard has moved out of the Raton Center. There is an effort to consolidate readiness centers throughout the state, and so this center will be folded into the Springer Readiness Center. And one of the factors are there are fewer and fewer soldiers at this Raton unit from Raton. And many of the soldiers attached to the Raton Readiness Center actually came from other parts of the state and would travel up here. I have, based on the conversation, drafted a letter and it requests that the New Mexico Army National Guard donate the building to the city of Raton. I would bring that to the commission for your concurrence and consider that as an economic development property. And so that will be forthcoming. I'll finish the letter and it will go to General Griego for consideration, and we'll have a discussion about the availability of their donation of the building back to the city of Raton. I would state that the building looked to be in excellent shape. Large space, I believe it's 23 or 24,000 square feet, and would be a good incentive for business, attracting business to Raton. Sorry, I got a little tongue-tied with the tongue. We have been involved in a review of our facilities by Mr. Howard Gentry. He works for Safety Counseling, Inc., and we have asked them to come to Raton and review all city Raton facilities as if he were an OSHA inspector, and that's due to the fact that Mr. Gentry is a retired OSHA inspector, and this is one of the services that Safety Counseling, Inc. provides at no cost to the members of the New Mexico Self-Insurers Fund, which the city of Raton is a member. And we are reviewing safety records and safety issues with all of our facilities. It's been very helpful in identifying places that we need to improve our facilities and improve safety, so that's been going on. There was award of a contract to R.W. Butt Construction for the Segerstrom Creek Restoration Project. That work is scheduled to start October 15th and is scheduled to be completed over the course of 6 weeks. That project is funded by stream restoration money that was awarded from the New Mexico Environment Department, and it will rehabilitate a section of Segerstrom Creek that has been prone to erosion following the track fire. And this is the area of the creek immediately west of Lake Maloya. And generally, the post-fire reclamation work is completed with the exception of this Segerstrom Creek restoration. And then probably trees will be planted for years to come in that area. We have advertised a request for bids for topsoil and barrier soil, and this would be used in the reclamation of the municipal landfill located on Armstrong Lane. So Mr. Phillips has put out the request for bids, and we anticipate that at the October 27th meeting, we'll bring you the bids for your consideration. And then this winter, we'll start on moving soil, doing the final grading of the landfill, and get ready to reseed that next May. We also held a pre-construction conference on the Cook Avenue, Park Avenue drainage improvement project. This is funded by capital outlay money from a few years back. The successful bidder was Country Club Construction, and they're scheduled to start on the project next week. That will generally replace storm drain facilities on Cook and Park between 3rd Street and 5th Street. So that work will be going on. And I would like to have a couple of personal notes here. I'd like to recognize the accomplishments of Paul Modridge. I think it's pretty common knowledge around town that Mr. Modridge, who grew up in Raton, a 1964 graduate of Raton High School, classmate, I believe, of Commissioner Chavez, was awarded the 2015 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for his work in DNA. I would also like to note the passing of Joe Apache. Joe Apache was a longtime mayor of Raton. I served on the city commission with Mayor Apache, and I can tell you that he always worked for the benefit of Raton. Joe was well-known throughout the state of New Mexico, and when you went to the Roundhouse or a statewide meeting with Joe Apache, everybody commented, "That's the mayor of Raton, that's Mayor Apache." So very good representative for many years with the city of Raton, and I'd just like to recognize Joe and his family. That's all I have, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Berry.
Fellow commissioners, I was going to bring this up about Mr. Modridge, and he is a classmate. This is a huge thing that he received. I mean, it is big, and I was going to ask you all to let us direct, but he's already done it, direct the city manager, and I would like to work towards having a Paul Modridge Day here in Raton, and he's indicated that he wouldn't mind that, but not until, he'll be here in Christmas time, but he'd like to do it next spring, when he comes in the spring in June. So, but I would like to see that Raton honor him in that way.
That'd be great. I think that'd be a great idea.
That's all I have.
Anyone else? Okay.
That's my-
Mr. Phillips.
Sorry, I know it's been a long enough night already, but if I could have the floor for just one moment. Mayor Pro Tem Commission, I just wanted to share something that happened with us here at the city. About 10 days ago, I received a call from Coach Giacomo of the Raton Tiger High School football team, and he had indicated that they had a bye week coming up this past week, and that his staff as well as his team was interested in doing something public service oriented for the city while they had some downtime. Typically in the past, we've had organizations do some work for us. In exchange for a number of hours worked, we make a contribution of $500. That wasn't the intention of his call. He would just like to get his team involved in the community to thank them in one way for the support that they've shown. And we would ask, what can we do for you? And his response was simply just ask the community to continue to support the Raton Tigers the way they always have, which I thought was pretty classy, and I wanted to share just a few photos with you. I know it's been a long night and about ready to get out of Dodge, but the turnout was amazing. I believe we had almost every football player there, as well as the young lady that helps to do the videotaping for the Tigers. So I thought the appropriate street for us to go to and spend these hours was Tiger Drive, since it leads to their high school and is named after them. So as you can see, we got our money's worth out of them, especially considering they weren't getting paid at all. but rather large turnout. This lower section of Tiger Drive is scheduled for replacement, but it's gonna have to make it through the winter, and we have a lot of cracks. Some of them were gracious enough to donate their time. We had about 8 of them that walked the entire extent of Tiger Drive, picking up litter, depositing in dumpsters as well. Just really, you know, the cool thing about being in a small town is you watch these kids grow up, and eventually, hopefully some of these kids grow up to be, you know, our future policemen and firemen and stay in our hometown. And they've got some civic pride as well as some of us that grew up here. And just want to thank Coach Giacomo and Coach Johnson for bringing them out. We, as you can see, we had them safe based on the OSHA thing. We've got vests on all of them. None of them were hit by any moving vehicles in the effort, but it's something that I personally appreciate, and we're just glad that they were able to come and do that for us. But, you know, small town, but I believe every single one of them was in attendance, and they all worked hard carrying 50-pound sacks of cold mix up and down. We let them try out some of the less dangerous pieces of equipment, some manual compactors, but just something I thought was really classy on behalf of Coach Giacomo, and wanted to give them the recognition that I think they deserve. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Job well done. Okay, is there any other business? This meeting is adjourned.